What's up, everybody? Back with another video about saving the GTR, but this isn't really about saving it. I'm just doing a little bit of a modification to something that I have a personal preference for. The intercooler on this car came with a black paint on it, which you know, it's okay. It doesn't really hurt the functionality of the intercooler much, but I prefer the bare aluminum look. So what I'm going to do today is try and strip off that paint to give it that nice bare aluminum look. Now, the factory GTR intercooler is pretty large. It's a pretty big upgrade for most cars. Unless you're pushing a lot of boost or a big turbo that really building up a lot of heat, there's really not a whole lot of need for an upgrade on the intercooler. And I'll show you how large this thing is here. So I have it set up outside here on a piece of plastic, and I mean, you can see that this thing's pretty large, and this is the factory intercooler. And it is manufactured, by Calsonic. So if anyone ever remembers playing Gran Turismo, you can play the there's a blue Calsonic GTR, and that's the company that basically makes that intercooler for Nissan. So today I am going to, I already removed the bumper and the intercooler, as you can see. So it wasn't too hard to get out, but today I'm just going to be using some aircraft remover and spraying it down and see how much paint comes off. So let's give it a shot. Alright, so it did a pretty good job on the first pass through. Get you in a little bit closer so you can see. Most of the fins are starting to come through, as well as the tubes. And the end tanks still have a little bit of work to do, but I'm just going to hit it with another pass through on the aircraft remover, and just in those spots where it needs a little bit more work, and give it another 15 minutes and then see what happens again. Alright, so it did a halfway decent job. It didn't get every single little bit of the black off there, but I'm not really concerned about that. I just wanted mainly the end tanks and the fins and the tubes going across to be clear of that black paint. But you really can see where all the fins are bent, and I may replace this later on. But for now, I think it looks a lot better, especially at a distance. So I'm going to reinstall that, and we'll take a look with the bumper on. Alright, so I got everything reinstalled, and I'm going to show you what the final product looks like. It's still kind of hidden behind the grill, but I think it looks a lot better. It gives it a little bit more of an aggressive appearance. So, I mean, not bad for a couple hours of, you know, taking the bumper off, cleaning the paint out, and reinstalling it. So, alright, I will catch you guys next time. Thanks. Hey, I just wanted to close this video out talking about why the GTR intercooler, even the factory one, is such a better design than most intercoolers that come on either factory cars or even aftermarket cars or aftermarket parts. Mainly it's because of the end tanks. Calsonic or whoever designed the intercooler for the GTR, they did a really great job in determining how airflow would affect the intercooler size. And I know the GTR has a really large area. It almost seems like the car, they designed the intercooler and then designed the crash bar and the bumper and everything around the size of the intercooler. Mainly, the reason that what I'm talking about is these end tanks here. This is kind of just a rough sketch of what I'm talking about, but most of the time in aftermarket intercoolers, you see designs similar to this. So you've got end tanks kind of at the bottom here, with a very thin area here. Now, if these two cores were the same and had the exact same amount of fins, and the same amount of tubes or the same amount of bar and plates, this intercooler would be far superior to this one. Now, there was somebody who, back in the day, they did a test on end tank sizes. And basically, what turns out that when you have end tanks like this, it actually can rob power. And what I'm talking about is when you have an end tank like this, you've got, just for sake of argument, you've got the hot air coming on this side, just because that's the way the GTR works. You've got it coming in, and it's got a nice, smooth area that has a conical effect for the hot air to go to the entire section of the core. So, and on the other side, it's got a nice funneling effect for the air that's been cooled to come out and go towards the engine. Now, when you have a small end tank like this, what can happen is either only the bottom portion of your core gets utilized, but when this builds enough pressure, it will force air up here, but what happens is it causes all kinds of turbulence up in this area here. And same thing on the other side, is it creates turbulence here. So it's taking longer for this air, even if this whole area is exposed, to basically make its way to the engine. And it also can create pressure drop. So when these aftermarket companies make this, they're only looking at core size. They're trying to fit the biggest core that the consumer wants into whatever bay. Theoretically, what they should do is shorten the core and make the end tanks smoother. So you would actually have the same or more power from a smaller core area with larger end tank on both sides. So There was one of the guys that I knew back in the day, he had a website called DVDT Fabrications, dvdtfab.com, and his thesis was about this. So I don't know if the website is still in existence, but basically he played with all kinds of end tank designs and showed what effect smooth transitions, angular transitions. Basically, when you have a cast piece like the GTR has on both sides that allows for very smooth airflow both in and out of the core, it actually is very good for horsepower and for keeping pressure. When you have this kind of a design with the short end tanks, it actually robs it quite a bit. So in closing, if you are limited in space and you want to get that big that big core, go for a smaller core if you're looking at something custom. Have somebody make you larger end tanks that, if you're looking to try and make some power out of your car. I know a lot of cars, they did not come with front mount intercoolers, so the GTR is kind of a very unique case study like that. Same with the Mitsubishi Lancer Evolution. Their end tanks were smaller, but the way they were pointed kind of worked for it. It wasn't that bad. But when you have vehicles that you're kind of going around, crash bars, like off on the ends here, and you're trying to get around those, I know it's kind of hard, but again, if you shorten the core and extend the end tanks to kind of fit in that same amount of space, you will actually make more power. All right. Well, thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.